Question 1. Examination of the data shows that a planned upgrade to IBM Sametime 9.0 is scheduled for the next quarter. To ensure a seamless transition and minimize disruption to business operations, what is the most critical preparatory step to undertake? Option A. Immediately begin user training sessions on the new Sametime interface to familiarize them with upcoming changes. Option B. Prioritize the deployment of the new Sametime version to all users as quickly as possible to leverage its latest features. Option C. Focus solely on the technical installation and configuration of the Sametime 9.0 server without considering user or system dependencies. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to identify potential effects on existing infrastructure, user workflows, and data integrity. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to identify potential effects on existing infrastructure, user workflows, and data integrity. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because implementing a new version of IBM Sametime involves potential disruptions to existing communication channels and data integrity. A thorough impact assessment is crucial to identify and mitigate these risks proactively, ensuring compliance with operational standards and data protection guidelines relevant to the exam's jurisdiction. The correct approach involves a systematic evaluation of how the Sametime 9.0 upgrade will affect current users, integrated systems, and data storage. This includes assessing potential downtime, changes in user experience, compatibility with other business applications, and the security implications of the new version. By conducting this assessment, an organization can anticipate issues, plan for necessary training, and develop rollback strategies, thereby minimizing negative consequences and ensuring a smooth transition. This aligns with best professional practices of due diligence and risk management, which are implicitly expected in IT system implementations. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the upgrade without a proper impact assessment. This could lead to several regulatory and ethical failures. For instance, if the upgrade causes data loss or corruption, it could violate data retention policies or privacy regulations if sensitive information is compromised. Failure to assess the impact on security features might leave the system vulnerable to breaches, contravening data security standards. Furthermore, significant user disruption without prior communication or mitigation plans could be seen as a failure in professional responsibility towards employees and operational continuity. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach to change management. This begins with clearly defining the scope of the change, followed by a comprehensive impact assessment that considers technical, operational, and user-centric aspects. Based on the assessment, a detailed implementation plan should be developed, including testing, training, communication, and contingency measures. Continuous monitoring and post-implementation review are also vital to ensure the success of the change and to identify any unforeseen issues. Question 2. Performance analysis shows a significant increase in latency for IBM Sametime 9.0 users attempting to join meetings and send instant messages, with intermittent connection drops reported. Which of the following initial diagnostic steps is most crucial for accurately identifying the root cause of these performance issues? Option A. Conducting a broad network performance test across all user subnets without specific focus on the Sametime server's network interface. Option B. Focusing solely on client-side troubleshooting by clearing client caches and reinstalling the Sametime Connect client for affected users. Option C. Reviewing and correlating server-side logs from the Sametime Meeting Server, Sametime Proxy Server, and Sametime Connect client logs for error patterns and resource utilization spikes. Option D. Immediately deploying a patch recommended by the vendor for general performance improvements across all Sametime components. The correct answer is C. Reviewing and correlating server-side logs from the Sametime Meeting Server, Sametime Proxy Server, and Sametime Connect client logs for error patterns and resource utilization spikes. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT infrastructure management, where performance degradation impacts user experience and potentially business operations. The professional challenge lies in accurately identifying the root cause of the performance issues within a complex system like IBM Sametime 9.0, which involves multiple interconnected components, servers, network, clients, databases. A hasty or incorrect diagnosis can lead to wasted resources, prolonged downtime, and a loss of user confidence. The need for a systematic and evidence-based approach is paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a methodical impact assessment that begins with gathering comprehensive data from various sources within the Sametime environment. This includes analyzing server logs, network traffic, client-side performance metrics, and database performance. By correlating these data points, one can pinpoint the specific component or configuration that is causing the bottleneck. This aligns with best practices in IT service management ITSM frameworks, which emphasize a structured problem-solving methodology. The focus on identifying the most likely cause based on empirical evidence ensures that remediation efforts are targeted and efficient, minimizing disruption and restoring service promptly. This approach is ethically sound as it prioritizes user service and business continuity. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing a broad, system-wide configuration change without a clear understanding of the root cause is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such an approach risks introducing new problems, exacerbating existing ones, or causing unintended downtime. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adhere to change management best practices, which are often implicitly or explicitly part of IT governance frameworks. This approach is professionally unacceptable because it is reactive rather than proactive and relies on guesswork rather than data-driven analysis. Focusing solely on client-side issues without investigating server or network infrastructure is another incorrect approach. Client performance is important. It is often a symptom of a larger problem within the core infrastructure. Ignoring the server or network components means the underlying issue will persist, leading to recurring performance problems and user dissatisfaction. This is a failure in comprehensive problem diagnosis and can lead to a breach of service-level agreements, SLAs, if not addressed properly. Blindly applying vendor-recommended fixes without understanding their specific relevance to the observed symptoms is also professionally unsound. While vendor recommendations can be valuable, they are often generic. Applying them without a thorough impact assessment can lead to unnecessary changes, potential system instability, and a failure to address the actual root cause. This approach bypasses critical thinking and a proper understanding of the system's current state. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach performance issues by first establishing a baseline of normal operation. When anomalies are detected, the decision-making process should involve 1. Data collection. Gather logs, metrics, and user feedback from all relevant components of the Sametime environment. 2. Hypothesis generation. Based on the collected data, formulate plausible hypotheses about the root cause. 3. Testing and validation. Systematically test each hypothesis, starting with the most likely, using diagnostic tools and controlled experiments. 4. Root cause identification. Confirm the actual root cause through evidence. 5. Remediation planning. Develop a targeted plan to address the identified root cause, including rollback procedures. 6. Implementation and monitoring. Implement the fix and closely monitor the system to ensure the issue is resolved and no new problems have arisen. This structured approach ensures that decisions are informed, risks are mitigated, and the most efficient path to resolution is taken, upholding professional standards and service commitments. Question 3. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing IBM Sametime 9.0 could significantly reduce current communication expenses, but a thorough impact assessment is required before proceeding. Which approach to impact assessment best aligns with professional best practices for a successful deployment? Option A. Focus primarily on the projected reduction in licensing costs for existing communication tools, assuming that user adoption will be seamless and that integration challenges are minimal. Option B. Expedite the deployment by focusing only on the core functionality of IBM Sametime 9.0, deferring any detailed analysis of user impact or integration complexities to a later phase. Option C. Conduct a high-level review of potential benefits and risks, relying heavily on vendor-provided documentation without independent verification of integration capabilities or security features. Option D. Prioritize a detailed assessment of how IBM Sametime 9.0 will integrate with existing IT infrastructure. Evaluate potential changes to user workflows and training needs, and analyze security implications for sensitive communications. The correct answer is D. Prioritize a detailed assessment of how IBM Sametime 9.0 will integrate with existing IT infrastructure, evaluate potential changes to user workflows and training needs, and analyze security implications for sensitive communications. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT project management, balancing the perceived benefits of a new technology with the potential risks and resource implications. The professional challenge lies in moving beyond a superficial understanding of impact assessment to a nuanced evaluation that considers both technical and organizational factors, while adhering to established best practices and, where applicable, regulatory considerations. The requirement to follow only the C2040-414 IBM Sametime 9.0 Fundamentals exam syllabus means that any regulatory or ethical considerations must be framed within the context of typical enterprise IT deployments and the principles of good governance, rather than specific, external legal statutes which are not part of this exam scope. The correct approach, focusing on a comprehensive impact assessment that includes user adoption, integration with existing infrastructure, and security implication, represents best professional practice because it aligns with the principles of robust IT project management. A thorough assessment ensures that the organization is not only technically prepared for the implementation of IBM Sametime 9.0, but also organizationally ready to leverage its capabilities. This proactive approach minimizes unforeseen issues, maximizes the return on investment, and ensures compliance with internal policies and industry best practices for data handling and communication security, which are implicit in a fundamentals exam. An incorrect approach that solely focuses on the immediate cost savings of a new platform, without considering the broader organizational impact, is professionally unacceptable. This oversight can lead to significant hidden costs associated with user resistance, inadequate training, integration failures, and security vulnerabilities. Such an approach fails to meet the professional obligation to conduct due diligence and provide a realistic picture of project outcomes. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of deployment over a detailed assessment of potential integration conflicts with existing communication tools would be a failure to adhere to sound IT governance principles. This can result in system instability, data silos, and a degraded user experience, all of which undermine the project's objectives and the IT department's credibility. Finally, an approach that neglects to assess the impact on data privacy and compliance, even within the context of internal policies, is a significant ethical and professional failing, as it exposes the organization to potential data breaches and reputational damage. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured impact assessment framework. This framework should systematically identify all potential areas of impact, including technical, operational, financial, and human resources. It should involve cross-functional teams to gather diverse perspectives and ensure all potential risks and benefits are considered. The assessment should then inform a clear implementation plan that includes mitigation strategies for identified risks and a roadmap for maximizing benefits. Continuous monitoring and evaluation throughout the project lifecycle are also crucial to adapt to changing circumstances and ensure the project remains on track. Question 4. Analysis of the impact of implementing IBM Sametime 9.0 on an organization's compliance posture. What is the most critical factor to consider during the initial assessment phase to ensure adherence to regulatory frameworks? Option A. A cost-benefit analysis of deploying IBM Sametime 9.0, focusing on return on investment and potential savings in communication expenses. Option B. A thorough evaluation of how Sametime 9.0's features and data handling capabilities align with specific industry regulations and data privacy laws, including audit trail requirements and data retention policies. Option C. A broad assessment of general IT security best practices without specific consideration for the unique functionalities of a real-time collaboration platform. Option D. A detailed review of the technical specifications and performance benchmarks of IBM Sametime 9.0 to ensure optimal system integration and user experience. The correct answer is B. A thorough evaluation of how Sametime 9.0's features and data handling capabilities align with specific industry regulations and data privacy laws, including audit trail requirements and data retention policies. Explanation. Scenario analysis. Implementing IBM Sametime 9.0 within an organization, especially one subject to specific regulatory frameworks, presents a significant challenge. Core difficulty lies in ensuring that the deployment and ongoing management of a real-time communication and collaboration platform do not inadvertently create compliance risks. This is particularly true when considering the impact assessment phase, which requires a thorough understanding of how the technology interacts with existing policies, data handling procedures, and regulatory obligations. A failure to adequately assess the impact can lead to data breaches, noncompliance fines, and reputational damage. The challenge is to proactively identify potential risks and integrate mitigation strategies from the outset, rather than reacting to problems after deployment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive, multifaceted impact assessment that considers technical, operational, security, and regulatory implications. This includes evaluating how Sametime 9.0 will handle sensitive data, its integration with existing security infrastructure, user access controls, data retention policies, and audit logging capabilities. Crucially, it requires mapping these functionalities against the specific regulatory requirements applicable to the organization's industry and jurisdiction. For instance, if the organization handles financial data, compliance with financial regulations regarding data privacy and audit trails would be paramount. A robust assessment would involve stakeholders from IT, security, legal, and compliance departments to ensure all angles are covered. This proactive, integrated approach ensures that the deployment aligns with legal and ethical standards, minimizing risk and fostering trust. Incorrect approaches analysis, focusing solely on the technical features and benefits of IBM Sametime 9.0 without a corresponding deep dive into its regulatory impact is a significant failure. This approach overlooks the critical need to ensure compliance with data privacy laws, industry-specific regulation, and internal security policies. Such a narrow focus could lead to the unintentional mishandling of sensitive information, inadequate audit trails, or insufficient security measures, all of which carry substantial regulatory and ethical penalties. Another incorrect approach is to delegate the entire impact assessment to the IT department without involving legal, compliance, or security experts. While IT possesses technical knowledge, they may lack the specialized understanding of regulatory nuances and ethical consideration required for a comprehensive assessment. This siloed approach risks overlooking crucial compliance requirements, leading to potential breaches of regulations and ethical standards. Finally, assuming that standard security protocols are sufficient without a specific assessment of Sametime 9.0's unique functionalities and potential vulnerabilities is also a flawed strategy. Real-time communication platforms have distinct security considerations, such as end-to-end encryption, message archiving, and user authentication, that require tailored evaluation against regulatory mandates. A generic security review is unlikely to identify specific compliance gaps related to the platform's real-time nature. Professional reasoning. Professionals faced with implementing new technologies like IBM Sametime 9.0 must adopt a risk-based, compliance-first mindset. The decision-making process should begin with identifying all applicable regulatory frameworks and internal policies. This is followed by a thorough analysis of how the technology's features and functionalities interact with these requirements. Stakeholder engagement is crucial, ensuring that input from legal, compliance, security, and business units is integrated into the assessment. The outcome should be a documented impact assessment that clearly outlines potential risks, mitigation strategies, and a plan for ongoing monitoring and compliance. This structured approach ensures that technology adoption supports, rather than undermines, the organization's legal and ethical obligations. Question 5. The evaluation methodology shows that the deployment of IBM Sametime 9.0 requires careful consideration of how user presence information is logged and retained. Given the potential for presence data to reveal user activity patterns, what is the most appropriate approach to ensure compliance with data privacy regulations? Option A. Implement logging of user presence information only for essential operational troubleshooting, with strict retention policies aligned with legal and organizational data privacy requirements, and ensure user awareness of this logging. Option B. Rely on the default logging settings provided by IBM Sametime 9.0, assuming they are compliant with all relevant data privacy laws without further verification. Option C. Disable all presence information logging to completely avoid any potential privacy concerns, even if it impacts essential collaboration features. Option D. Log all user presence information and retain it for an extended period to facilitate potential future investigations or audits, assuming it is not explicitly classified as sensitive personal data. Correct answer is D. Log all user presence information and retain it for an extended period to facilitate potential future investigations or audits, assuming it is not explicitly classified as sensitive personal data. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data privacy and compliance within the context of IBM Sametime 9.0 deployment. The core difficulty lies in balancing the operational need for user presence information with the stringent requirements of data protection regulations. Specifically, understanding the scope and limitations of data collection and retention for presence information, and ensuring that any access or logging adheres to established policies and legal frameworks is critical. Misinterpreting these requirements can lead to significant compliance breaches, reputational damage, and potential legal penalties. The need for careful judgment arises from the nuanced nature of presence information and its potential to reveal sensitive user activity patterns. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the IBM Sametime 9.0 documentation and relevant data privacy regulations to determine the permissible scope of presence information logging and retention. This includes understanding what constitutes presence information under the applicable legal framework, whether explicit user consent is required for logging this data, and the defined retention periods for such logs. Adhering to these guidelines ensures that the organization remains compliant with data protection laws, respects user privacy, and avoids unauthorized data collection or misuse. This approach demonstrates best professional practice by prioritizing legal and ethical obligations in system deployment and management. Incorrect approaches analysis. Logging all presence information without a clear understanding of its regulatory implications is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. It risks collecting data that may be considered personal or sensitive without proper consent or a legitimate business purpose, thereby violating data privacy principles. Implementing a default retention policy for presence logs that exceeds legally mandated or organizationally defined limits is another regulatory failure. This can lead to unnecessary data accumulation, increasing the risk of breaches and non-compliance with data minimization principles. Assuming that all presence information is non-personal and therefore exempt from privacy regulations is a dangerous assumption and a potential ethical lapse. The context and nature of presence data can often reveal patterns of user activity that are considered personal information, requiring adherence to privacy laws. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with deploying and managing IBM Sametime 9.0 must adopt a proactive and compliance-driven approach. This involves 1. Understanding the specific data privacy regulations applicable to the organization's jurisdiction. 2. Thoroughly researching the capabilities and data handling practices of IBM Sametime 9.0, particularly concerning presence information. 3. Consulting with legal and compliance teams to define clear policies on data collection, logging, and retention for presence data. 4. Implementing technical controls and configurations that align with these policies and regulatory requirements. 5. Regularly reviewing and auditing system configurations and data handling practices to ensure ongoing compliance. Question 6. Process analysis reveals that a new corporate security policy mandates enhanced authentication for all internal communication platforms, including IBM Sametime 9.0. The IT administrator is tasked with implementing this policy, which requires users to re-authenticate more frequently. The current Sametime deployment is widely used for real-time collaboration and is critical to daily operations. The administrator is considering several approaches to implement the new authentication requirements, which approach best balances security mandates with operational continuity and user adoption. Option A. Deploy the new authentication policy only to a select group of IT-savvy users who can then act as internal champions to help other users, without a formal training program or broad communication campaign. Option B. Post a brief announcement on the company intranet about the upcoming security policy change, and then enforce it universally within 24 hours, assuming users will figure out the new authentication process on their own. Option C. Implement the new authentication policy in phases, starting with a small, non-critical department to test the process, and then gradually rolling it out to the rest of the organization with comprehensive user training and clear communication about the reasons for the change and how to use the new authentication methods. Option D. Immediately enforce the new, stricter authentication policy across all Sametime users without prior notification, relying on users to adapt to the changes as they encounter them. The correct answer is D. Immediately enforce the new, stricter authentication policy across all Sametime users without prior notification, relying on users to adapt to the changes as they encounter them. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise IT environments where a new security policy is being implemented. The core difficulty lies in balancing the immediate need for enhanced security with the operational impact on users and the potential for disruption. The IT administrator must navigate the technical complexities of IBM Sametime 9.0 configuration, user communication, and the implications of a phased rollout versus an immediate enforcement. The pressure to comply with the new policy quickly, coupled with user reliance on Sametime for daily communication, creates a professionally challenging situation requiring careful judgment and a well-defined strategy. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach, which involves a phased rollout with clear communication and user training, represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a controlled and user-centric implementation. This method minimizes disruption by allowing users to adapt gradually to the new security measures. Clear communication ensures users understand the why behind the changes, fostering cooperation rather than resistance. Providing training empowers users to utilize the new security features effectively, reducing support overhead and improving overall adoption. This approach aligns with principles of responsible IT management, emphasizing user experience and operational continuity while achieving security objectives. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this approach demonstrates due diligence in protecting company data while respecting the productivity and workflow of employees. It avoids a sudden, potentially damaging change that could lead to security vulnerabilities through user confusion or workarounds. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the new security policy immediately without any prior notification or user training is professionally unacceptable. This approach creates significant operational disruption, potentially leading to user frustration, decreased productivity, and even security breaches, as users struggle to adapt or find unauthorized ways to communicate. It fails to meet ethical obligations to inform and support users. Deploying the policy only to a small, isolated pilot group without a clear plan for broader rollout or feedback integration is also professionally flawed. While a pilot can be useful, its purpose is to inform a wider deployment. Without this, it becomes an incomplete solution that doesn't address the overall organizational security need and may lead to inconsistent security postures across the company. Ignoring the new security policy altogether due to anticipated user resistance is a severe dereliction of professional duty. This approach directly contravenes the organization's security directives and exposes the company to significant risks, including data breaches and non-compliance with potential industry regulations or internal governance. It prioritizes avoiding immediate conflict over fulfilling fundamental security responsibilities. Professional reasoning. Professionals faced with such a scenario should employ a structured decision-making process. First, thoroughly understand the technical requirements of the new security policy and its implications for IBM Sametime 9.0. Second, assess the potential impact on users and business operations. Third, develop a phased implementation plan that includes clear communication channels, comprehensive user training materials, and a feedback mechanism. Fourth, consult with relevant stakeholders, including security teams, management, and user representatives, to refine the plan. Finally, execute the rollout according to the plan, monitor its effectiveness, and be prepared to make adjustments based on user feedback and operational performance. This systematic approach ensures that security objectives are met without compromising user productivity or operational stability. Question 7. Research into the integration of a new IBM Sametime 9.0 feature for enhanced team collaboration reveals a potential need to bypass standard security review protocol to meet an aggressive business deadline. The proposed feature allows for real-time document co-editing and sharing. What is the most professionally responsible approach to integrating this new IBM Sametime 9.0 feature? Option A. Deploy the new Sametime feature to a limited pilot group first, and if no immediate issues are reported by users, proceed with a full rollout without a formal security review. Option B. Proceed with the integration of the new Sametime feature immediately to meet the business deadline, documenting the security review bypass for post-implementation assessment. Option C. Initiate a formal security and compliance review process for the new Sametime feature, engaging relevant stakeholders to assess risks and ensure adherence to data handling policies before full deployment. Option D. Implement the new Sametime feature with minimal configuration changes, assuming that default security settings will be sufficient to protect shared documents. The correct answer is B. Proceed with the integration of the new Sametime feature immediately to meet the business deadline, documenting the security review bypass for post-implementation assessment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid deployment of new features and ensuring compliance with established security and data handling policies. The need to integrate a new communication channel without thorough vetting creates a risk of introducing vulnerabilities or non-compliant data flows. Careful judgment is required to balance innovation with security and regulatory adherence. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and compliant integration process. By engaging the security and compliance teams early, the organization ensures that the new Sametime feature is evaluated against existing policies and relevant regulations. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of security breaches, data leakage, and non-compliance penalties. It aligns with the principle of security by design and demonstrates a commitment to responsible technology adoption, which is implicitly supported by general IT governance frameworks that emphasize risk management and due diligence. An incorrect approach that bypasses established security and compliance review processes is professionally unacceptable. This failure constitutes a direct violation of internal governance policies and potentially external regulatory requirements concerning data privacy and security. It exposes the organization to significant risks, including data breaches, reputational damage, and legal liabilities. Such an approach demonstrates a disregard for established controls and a lack of professional responsibility in managing technology deployments. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on user adoption without considering the underlying technical and security implications is also professionally unacceptable. While user experience is important, it cannot supersede fundamental security and compliance obligations. Neglecting these aspects can lead to the introduction of insecure configurations or the handling of sensitive data in a non-compliant manner, thereby creating significant risks for the organization. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment. This includes identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities associated with the new technology, evaluating its impact on data privacy and compliance, and determining the necessary controls to mitigate these risks. Collaboration with relevant stakeholders, including security, compliance, legal, and IT operations teams, is crucial. A phased rollout, starting with a pilot program and incorporating feedback, can further refine the integration process while ensuring adherence to all applicable standards and regulations. Question 8. The performance metrics show a significant increase in latency for IBM Sametime 9.0 chat and meeting services, with intermittent connection drops reported by users. The metrics also indicate high CPU utilization on the Sametime server itself, but no unusual network traffic patterns have been observed. What is the most appropriate initial course of action to diagnose and resolve this issue? Option A. Advise users to clear their Sametime client cache and restart their computers, assuming the issue is client-side related due to connection drops. Option B. Initiate a full system reboot of the IBM Sametime server and all associated services to clear any temporary glitches that might be causing the performance degradation. Option C. Immediately escalate the issue to the network team to investigate potential network congestion or firewall issues, as latency is a primary indicator of network problems. Option D. Thoroughly analyze the IBM Sametime server logs for errors or warnings related to chat and meeting services. Review the server's resource utilization, CPU, memory, disk I/O in detail, and verify the health and performance of the underlying database server. The correct answer is D. Thoroughly analyze the IBM Sametime server logs for errors or warnings related to chat and meeting services. Review the server's resource utilization, CPU, memory, disk I/O in detail, and verify the health and performance of the underlying database server. Explanation: Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT environments where performance degradation can impact user productivity and business operations. The difficulty lies in accurately diagnosing the root cause of the performance issues within the IBM Sametime 9.0 environment, especially when multiple components are involved. A hasty or incorrect diagnosis can lead to wasted resources, prolonged downtime, and potential non-compliance with service-level agreements, SLAs, if not addressed promptly and effectively. The pressure to resolve the issue quickly, coupled with the complexity of distributed systems, necessitates a systematic and informed approach. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a methodical investigation of the IBM Sametime 9.0 architecture, focusing on the specific components indicated by the performance metrics. This includes examining the Sametime server logs, network connectivity between components, e.g., Sametime server, database server, proxy server, resource utilization on the servers, CPU, memory, disk I/O, and the health of underlying services like the database. Verifying the configuration of Sametime components, such as meeting services, chat services, and presence services, against best practices and documented requirements is crucial. This systematic approach ensures that the actual cause of the performance bottleneck is identified, leading to an efficient and effective resolution. This aligns with professional IT best practices for incident management and problem resolution, aiming to restore service with minimal disruption and prevent recurrence. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to immediately assume the issue is solely with the network infrastructure, without first investigating the Sametime server logs and resource utilization. This is a failure of systematic troubleshooting and can lead to misallocation of resources and prolonged resolution times. Another incorrect approach is to arbitrarily restart Sametime services or servers without understanding the underlying cause. This can mask the problem, lead to data corruption, or cause further instability. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on client-side issues without verifying server-side performance and health, which is a premature conclusion given the performance metrics point to server-side degradation. These approaches lack a structured diagnostic process and can result in significant operational inefficiencies and potential breaches of service delivery expectations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach performance issues by first gathering all available data, including performance metrics and logs. Then they should formulate hypotheses about potential causes and systematically test them, starting with the most likely or impactful components. This involves understanding the architecture of the system in question, in this case, IBM Sametime 9.0, and its dependencies. Documenting each step of the investigation and resolution process is also critical for knowledge sharing and future problem solving. When faced with complex issues, consulting official documentation, vendor support, and engaging with experienced colleagues are valuable steps. The goal is always to achieve a stable and performant system while adhering to established IT service management principles. Question 9. Examination of the data shows that IBM Sametime 9.0 chat logs are being retained indefinitely for general system monitoring purposes. A recent user complaint regarding a privacy concern has highlighted the potential for sensitive personal information to be exposed through these logs. What is the most appropriate course of action to address this situation while adhering to data protection principles? Option A. Encrypt all chat logs at rest and in transit, and rely on the encryption to mitigate privacy concerns without altering the retention policy. Option B. Delete all chat logs immediately to eliminate any potential privacy risks and disable logging for all Sametime functionalities. Option C. Continue retaining all chat logs indefinitely as they are essential for historical analysis and potential future investigations, and inform users that their chat content may be monitored. Option D. Implement a policy to anonymize or pseudonymize chat log data before retention, and establish a defined retention period for diagnostic logs, ensuring only necessary data for troubleshooting is collected. The correct answer is D. Implement a policy to anonymize or pseudonymize chat log data before retention and establish a defined retention period for diagnostic logs, ensuring only necessary data for troubleshooting is collected. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge related to data privacy and security within the context of IBM Sametime 9.0 deployment. The core issue is balancing the need for effective troubleshooting and system monitoring with the imperative to protect sensitive user information, as mandated by relevant data protection regulations. The challenge lies in identifying the appropriate level of data access and retention for diagnostic purposes without infringing upon user privacy rights or violating compliance requirements. The correct approach involves a risk-based assessment and adherence to the principle of least privilege. This means collecting only the minimum data necessary for troubleshooting, anonymizing or pseudonymizing sensitive information where possible, and establishing clear data retention policies that align with regulatory requirements. This approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes user privacy and data security, which are fundamental ethical and legal obligations. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible data handling and builds trust with users. An incorrect approach would be to indiscriminately collect and retain all available log data without proper consideration for its sensitivity. This could lead to regulatory failures such as violations of data minimization principles, unauthorized access to personal data, and failure to obtain adequate consent for data processing, depending on the specific jurisdiction's data protection laws. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore potential privacy implications altogether, focusing solely on technical resolution without considering the broader compliance landscape. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and can result in significant legal and reputational damage. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific data protection regulations applicable to their operating environment. This should be followed by a thorough assessment of the data being collected, its sensitivity, and the purpose for its collection. Implementing technical and organizational measures to protect this data, such as access controls, encryption, and anonymization, is crucial. Regular review of data handling practices and ongoing training for personnel involved in system administration and support are also vital components of a robust decision-making process. Question 10. Which approach would be most appropriate for a company deploying IBM Sametime 9.0 to ensure compliance with data privacy regulations and maintain user trust? Option A. Focus solely on technical performance and scalability during the Sametime deployment, deferring any discussions or actions related to data privacy and regulatory compliance to a later, unspecified date. Option B. Implement Sametime with default security settings and assume that standard IT security practices are sufficient to meet all regulatory obligations without specific privacy assessments. Option C. Prioritize the rapid deployment of Sametime's collaboration features to maximize immediate productivity gains, addressing any potential privacy concerns only if they arise post-deployment. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of all applicable data privacy regulations and integrate their requirements into the Sametime deployment plan, including access controls, data retention policies, and user consent mechanisms, before and during implementation. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough review of all applicable data privacy regulations and integrate their requirements into the Sametime deployment plan, including access controls, data retention policies, and user consent mechanisms, before and during implementation. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge related to data privacy and security within the context of IBM Sametime 9.0 deployment. The core issue is balancing the need for effective communication and collaboration with the imperative to protect sensitive user information, particularly in light of evolving regulatory landscapes. Careful judgment is required to ensure compliance and maintain user trust. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive understanding of applicable regulations, such as those governing data protection and privacy, and integrates these requirements directly into the Sametime deployment strategy. This proactive, compliance-first methodology ensures that security controls, access management, and data handling policies are designed from the outset to meet legal obligations. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible data stewardship, which is a cornerstone of professional integrity and a key requirement for maintaining user confidence and avoiding legal repercussions. An incorrect approach that fails to adequately assess regulatory requirements before deployment risks significant regulatory and ethical failures. For instance, implementing Sametime without a thorough understanding of data residency laws or user consent requirements could lead to non-compliance, resulting in substantial fines and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, such as prioritizing feature deployment over security and privacy considerations, directly violates ethical obligations to protect user data and could expose the organization to data breaches, unauthorized access, and misuse of sensitive information. These failures undermine the trust placed in IT professionals and the organization. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment that explicitly includes regulatory compliance as a primary factor. This process should begin with identifying all relevant legal and ethical frameworks applicable to the data being handled and the user base. Subsequently, technical solutions and deployment plans must be evaluated against these requirements, with a clear emphasis on building security and privacy into the system's architecture. Continuous monitoring and periodic reviews are also essential to adapt to changes in regulations and emerging threats. Question 11. The review process indicates that the organization is experiencing challenges in securely integrating external partners into its IBM Sametime 9.0 environment for real-time communication. Specifically, there are concerns about the potential exposure of sensitive internal project discussions and client data when external users are granted access. The IT security team is evaluating different strategies to address this, aiming to maintain collaboration while mitigating risks. Which of the following strategies best balances the need for secure external collaboration with the protection of sensitive internal information within the IBM Sametime 9.0 framework? Option A. Allow external users to access all internal chat logs and contact lists by default, assuming they will exercise professional discretion and adhere to their own organizational security policies. Option B. Implement end-to-end encryption for all communications involving external users and configure granular access controls to limit their visibility to specific chat rooms and contact lists relevant to their projects. Option C. Block all external user access to IBM Sametime 9.0 to eliminate any potential security risks associated with external communication. Option D. Provide external users with a separate, less secure version of Sametime that is not integrated with the internal network, and instruct them to use this for all communications. The correct answer is B. Implement end-to-end encryption for all communications involving external users and configure granular access controls to limit their visibility to specific chat rooms and contact lists relevant to their projects. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data privacy and security within the context of IBM Sametime 9.0 deployment. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for effective communication and collaboration tools with the imperative to protect sensitive user information, especially when dealing with external parties. The organization must ensure that its Sametime implementation adheres to relevant data protection regulations, which often mandate strict controls over data access, storage, and transmission. Failure to do so can result in significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough risk assessment and the implementation of robust security measures, specifically focusing on encryption and access controls for external user communication. This aligns with best practices for data security and privacy, which are often codified in regulatory frameworks. By encrypting data in transit and at rest, and by implementing granular access controls that limit external users' visibility to only necessary information, the organization demonstrates due diligence in protecting sensitive data. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of unauthorized access or data breaches, thereby upholding regulatory compliance and ethical obligations. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that prioritizes immediate functionality over security by allowing external users to access internal chat logs without encryption or strict access controls represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This directly contravenes data protection principles that require safeguarding sensitive information, exposes the organization to risks of data leakage, unauthorized disclosure, and potential violations of privacy laws. Another incorrect approach would be to completely disable external user access to Sametime. While this might seem like a secure option, it fails to meet the business need for collaboration and can be seen as an overly restrictive and impractical solution. It doesn't address the underlying requirement to enable secure external communication, which is often a legitimate business objective. This approach fails to balance security with operational needs. Finally, relying solely on user-provided security measures for external users without implementing organizational controls is also a failure. This outsources critical security responsibilities to individuals who may not have the necessary expertise or commitment to data protection, creating a significant vulnerability. It demonstrates a lack of organizational responsibility for data security. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach. This involves identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities, assessing their impact, and implementing appropriate controls. When dealing with sensitive data and external access, a layered security strategy is crucial, incorporating technical controls, encryption, access management, and policy-based measures. The decision-making process should always prioritize compliance with applicable regulations and ethical standards, ensuring that business objectives are met without compromising data integrity and user privacy. Question 12. The analysis reveals that an organization is evaluating IBM Sametime 9.0 deployment options, specifically focusing on how each option impacts their ability to meet data residency and access control mandates stipulated by the relevant regulatory framework. Which of the following deployment considerations best aligns with a proactive approach to ensuring ongoing regulatory compliance? Option A. Prioritizing the deployment model that offers the most cost-effective solution and quickest implementation timeline, assuming standard security configurations are sufficient. Option B. Implementing the deployment with default security settings and deferring any specific configuration for data residency or access control until a compliance audit is scheduled. Option C. Selecting a deployment model that allows for granular control over data storage locations and user access permissions, with comprehensive audit logging capabilities that can be readily integrated with existing compliance monitoring tools. Option D. Opting for a cloud-hosted deployment without a detailed review of the vendor's data handling policies, relying on the general reputation of the cloud provider for security. The correct answer is A. Prioritizing the deployment model that offers the most cost-effective solution and quickest implementation timeline, assuming standard security configurations are sufficient. Explanation. The analysis reveals a scenario where an organization is considering different deployment models for IBM Sametime 9.0. The challenge lies in selecting a deployment strategy that not only meets functional requirements, but also adheres to the specific regulatory framework governing data privacy and security within the relevant jurisdiction. This requires a deep understanding of how different deployment models interact with data handling, access controls, and audit logging capabilities, all of which are critical for compliance. The correct approach involves a thorough evaluation of each deployment option against the organization's specific compliance obligations. This includes assessing how data is stored, transmitted, and accessed in each model, and whether these processes align with the stipulated regulatory requirements for data protection, consent, and breach notification. Best professional practice dictates a proactive, risk-based approach, prioritizing solutions that offer robust security features and clear audit trails, thereby minimizing the likelihood of regulatory noncompliance and associated penalties. This aligns with the principle of privacy by design and security by design, which are fundamental tenets of many data protection regulations. Incorrect approaches would fail to adequately consider the regulatory landscape. For instance, choosing a deployment model solely based on cost or ease of implementation without a corresponding compliance assessment would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This could lead to inadvertent breaches of data privacy laws, such as unauthorized access to sensitive information or inadequate data retention policies, resulting in fines, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Another failure would be to assume that a particular deployment model is inherently compliant without verifying its specific configuration and operational practices against the relevant regulations. This oversight could lead to a false sense of security and ultimately expose the organization to legal repercussions. The professional decision-making process should involve a cross-functional team including IT, legal, compliance, and business stakeholders. This team should conduct a detailed risk assessment for each deployment option, mapping potential compliance gaps to specific regulatory articles. They should then prioritize options that demonstrate a clear alignment with regulatory mandates, seeking expert advice where necessary to interpret complex legal requirements. Documentation of this assessment and the rationale for the chosen deployment is crucial for demonstrating due diligence in the event of an audit or investigation. Question 13. System analysis indicates that a financial services firm is implementing IBM Sametime 9.0 and needs to ensure that sensitive client communication logs are only accessible by authorized compliance officers. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory requirements for data access control and professional security best practices within the Sametime 9.0 framework? Option A. Disable all access control features within Sametime to allow for maximum collaboration and information sharing. Option B. Configure Sametime's access control lists, ACL, to grant specific permissions to the compliance officer group for accessing communication logs. Option C. Implement network-level firewalls to restrict access to the Sametime server, assuming this will adequately protect communication logs. Option D. Assign all users full administrative rights within Sametime to simplify management and ensure everyone can access necessary information. The correct answer is B. Configure Sametime's access control lists, ACL, to grant specific permissions to the compliance officer group for accessing communication logs. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in managing user access and data security within an IBM Sametime 9.0 environment. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for efficient communication and collaboration with the imperative to adhere to data privacy regulations and internal security policies. Misinterpreting or misapplying access control mechanisms can lead to unauthorized data exposure, compliance violations, and reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to select the most appropriate method for granting access that aligns with both business needs and regulatory mandates. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging Sametime's built-in access control lists, ACL, and user group management features. This method represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the requirement to restrict access to sensitive information based on defined roles and responsibilities. By configuring ACLs, administrators can granularly control who can access specific chat rooms, contact lists, or other Sametime resources. This aligns with general data protection principles, which mandate that access to sensitive data should be limited to those who have a legitimate need to know. In the context of IBM Sametime 9.0, this is the most direct and compliant way to manage access without resorting to less secure or more complex workarounds. Incorrect approaches analysis. Granting all users full administrative privileges is a severe regulatory and ethical failure. It violates the principle of least privilege, a fundamental security concept that dictates users should only have the minimum permissions necessary to perform their job functions. This approach would expose all data and system configurations to every user, creating a high risk of accidental or malicious data breaches and system misuse, directly contravening data protection laws that require reasonable security measures. Disabling all access control features within Sametime is another critical failure. This would effectively create an open system where all users can access all information, regardless of their role or authorization. This directly contradicts data privacy regulations that mandate the protection of sensitive information and the prevention of unauthorized access. It demonstrates a complete disregard for security best practices and legal obligations. Relying solely on network-level firewalls to restrict access to Sametime resources is insufficient and professionally unsound. While firewalls are a necessary component of network security, they operate at a different layer than application-level access control. They can prevent external access, but do not provide granular control over who within the organization can access specific Sametime features or data. This approach fails to address the internal access control requirements mandated by data protection laws and internal policies, leaving sensitive information vulnerable to unauthorized internal access. Professional reasoning. professionals should approach access control challenges by first understanding the specific data sensitivity and regulatory requirements applicable to their organization. This involves consulting relevant data protection laws and internal security policies. Next, they should identify the capabilities of the technology in use, in this case, IBM Sametime 9.0, to implement these controls. The decision-making process should prioritize solutions that offer granular control, adhere to the principle of least privilege, and are auditable. When faced with multiple potential solutions, the professional should evaluate each against the established requirements, prioritizing the most secure, compliant, and manageable option. If a technology's native features are insufficient, the professional should explore integration with other security tools or consider alternative solutions, rather than compromising on fundamental security and compliance principles. Question 14. Risk assessment procedures indicate that sensitive user data within IBM Sametime 9.0 deployments may be vulnerable to unauthorized access and disclosure. Considering the need to maintain confidentiality and integrity of this data, which of the following approaches best mitigates these risks while adhering to fundamental data protection principles? Option A. Relying exclusively on network-level security measures and firewalls to protect the Sametime environment. Option B. Disabling detailed logging and audit trails to minimize storage overhead and simplify system management. Option C. Implementing robust data encryption for sensitive information stored and transmitted by IBM Sametime. Option D. Assuming that strong user authentication and authorization protocols are sufficient to prevent all data breaches. Correct answer is C. Implementing robust data encryption for sensitive information stored and transmitted by IBM Sametime. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data privacy and security within the context of IBM Sametime 9.0 deployment. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for effective communication and collaboration tools with the imperative to protect sensitive user information, especially in light of evolving regulatory landscapes. Organizations must make informed decisions about data handling practices that comply with relevant laws and ethical standards, while also ensuring the functionality and usability of their collaboration platform. The challenge is amplified by the potential for data breaches, unauthorized access, and non-compliance penalties, necessitating a proactive and well-justified approach to data management. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing robust data encryption for sensitive information stored and transmitted by IBM Sametime. This aligns with best practices for data security and privacy, and is a fundamental requirement under many data protection regulations. Encryption ensures that even if unauthorized access occurs, the data remains unreadable and unusable to malicious actors. This proactive measure directly addresses the risk of data exposure and helps maintain user trust and organizational reputation. It demonstrates a commitment to safeguarding sensitive information, which is a cornerstone of responsible data stewardship and a key expectation under data privacy frameworks. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to rely solely on network-level security measures without encrypting data at rest or in transit within Sametime. While network security is important, it does not protect data if the network itself is compromised or if access is gained through other means. This approach fails to provide a secondary layer of defense and leaves sensitive information vulnerable. Another incorrect approach is to assume that user authentication and authorization alone are sufficient to protect data. While these are critical security controls, they do not prevent data from being accessed or misused by authorized individuals who might intentionally or unintentionally expose it. Furthermore, they do not address the risk of data breaches originating from external threats. A third incorrect approach is to disable logging or audit trails to reduce storage requirements. This is a significant failure as it cripples the ability to detect, investigate, and respond to security incidents. Without proper logging, it becomes impossible to identify the source of a breach, understand the extent of the compromise, or demonstrate compliance with audit requirements. This directly undermines accountability and security monitoring. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to data security and privacy. This involves identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities, assessing their impact, and implementing appropriate controls. When dealing with collaboration platforms like IBM Sametime, A thorough understanding of the data being handled, its sensitivity, and the regulatory requirements governing its protection is paramount. Decision-making should prioritize measures that provide defense in depth, ensuring multiple layers of security. This includes technical controls like encryption, access management, and comprehensive logging, as well as procedural controls like regular security audits and user training. Professionals must continuously evaluate and adapt their security posture to address emerging threats and evolving regulatory landscapes, always prioritizing the protection of sensitive information and the trust of users. Question 15. During the evaluation of potential unified communication solutions for an organization operating under a specific regulatory framework, which approach best ensures compliance and operational efficiency when considering IBM Sametime 9.0? Option A. Selecting the version of IBM Sametime that offers the broadest range of advanced features, assuming that more features inherently lead to better compliance and efficiency. Option B. Conducting a comparative analysis of IBM Sametime 9.0's security features, integration capabilities, and compliance adherence against the organization's specific regulatory requirements and business needs. Option C. Recommending an IBM Sametime configuration based on its widespread adoption in other industries, irrespective of its specific alignment with the organization's unique regulatory obligations and technical infrastructure. Option D. Prioritizing the IBM Sametime solution with the lowest initial licensing cost, without a thorough assessment of its long-term security implications or integration complexity within the existing regulatory environment. Correct answer is B. Conducting a comparative analysis of IBM Sametime 9.0's security features, integration capabilities, and compliance adherence against the organization's specific regulatory requirements and business needs. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise IT environments where multiple communication and collaboration platforms might be in use or considered for adoption. The professional is tasked with recommending a unified solution, which requires understanding the technical capabilities, security implications, and integration potential of different IBM Sametime versions and related technologies. The challenge lies in balancing immediate functional needs with long-term strategic goals, security compliance, and user adoption, all within the context of the specific regulatory framework governing the organization's operations. The need for a comparative analysis arises from the fact that different versions or configurations of Sametime may offer varying levels of security, feature sets, and integration capabilities, directly impacting compliance and operational efficiency. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough comparative analysis of IBM Sametime 9.0's core functionalities, security features, and integration capabilities against the organization's current and future requirements, specifically considering the regulatory framework relevant to the exam's jurisdiction. This means evaluating how Sametime 9.0's features, such as its encryption protocols, access control mechanisms, and data retention policies, align with any applicable data privacy laws, communication interception regulations, or industry-specific compliance mandates. A deep dive into Sametime 9.0's architecture and its ability to integrate with other essential business systems, e.g., email, CRM, while maintaining security and compliance is crucial. This approach represents best professional practice because it is data-driven, risk-aware, and directly addresses the organization's needs within its operational and regulatory constraints. It ensures that the chosen solution not only meets functional requirements, but also upholds legal and ethical obligations. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the most feature-rich version of Sametime, without a detailed assessment of its security implications or integration complexity relative to the organization's specific regulatory environment. This fails to consider potential compliance gaps or the cost and effort of integrating a solution that may not be optimally suited for the existing infrastructure or regulatory landscape. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize a solution based on perceived cost savings alone, neglecting a comprehensive evaluation of its security posture, scalability, and long-term supportability within the defined regulatory framework. This can lead to significant hidden costs related to security breaches, compliance fines, or the eventual need for a costly replacement. A third incorrect approach would be to recommend a solution based on anecdotal evidence or the popularity of a particular feature set without validating its suitability against the organization's specific use cases and regulatory obligations. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and can result in a solution that is either non-compliant or ineffective. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with a clear understanding of the organization's strategic objectives, technical environment, and most importantly, the applicable regulatory framework. This involves defining specific requirements, including security, compliance, scalability, and integration needs. Subsequently, a comparative analysis of potential solutions, such as different configurations or versions of IBM Sametime, should be conducted against these defined requirements. This analysis must include a thorough risk assessment, particularly concerning regulatory compliance and data security. The final recommendation should be supported by evidence, clearly articulating the rationale, potential benefits, risks, and costs associated with the chosen solution, ensuring alignment with both business goals and legal obligations. Question 16. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing IBM Sametime 9.0 could offer enhanced collaboration features and potential cost reductions in communication tools, but its successful integration into the existing IT infrastructure and adherence to current security protocols are critical considerations. Which approach best balances these factors for a responsible adoption decision? Option A. Prioritize the immediate cost savings and user-facing features of IBM Sametime 9.0, deferring detailed technical integration and security reviews until after deployment to expedite implementation. Option B. Adopt IBM Sametime 9.0 based solely on vendor recommendations and positive user feedback from similar organizations, assuming it will seamlessly integrate and meet all security requirements. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive technical assessment of IBM Sametime 9.0's compatibility with existing systems and a thorough security review against organizational policies and best practices before any commitment to adoption. Option D. Focus on the advanced collaboration features of IBM Sametime 9.0, assuming that any integration or security challenges can be addressed reactively as they arise during ongoing operations. The correct answer is A. Prioritize the immediate cost savings and user-facing features of IBM Sametime 9.0, deferring detailed technical integration and security reviews until after deployment to expedite implementation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT infrastructure management, balancing the immediate benefits of a new technology with the long-term implications of its integration and ongoing support. The professional is tasked with evaluating the adoption of IBM Sametime 9.0, a collaboration platform, and must consider not only its functional advantages, but also its alignment with existing IT policies, security protocols, and the overall strategic direction of the organization. The challenge lies in making a decision that is technically sound, cost-effective, and compliant with internal governance and potentially external regulatory requirements, even if those are not explicitly detailed in the exam scope. The need for a comprehensive evaluation that goes beyond superficial feature comparisons is paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough assessment of IBM Sametime 9.0's integration capabilities with the existing IT environment. This includes evaluating its compatibility with current operating systems, network infrastructure, and other critical business applications. Furthermore, a robust security review is essential to ensure that the platform adheres to the organization's security policies and any relevant data privacy regulations. This approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a holistic and risk-aware implementation. By ensuring seamless integration and robust security, the organization minimizes potential disruptions, data breaches, and compliance issues, thereby safeguarding its operations and reputation. This aligns with general IT governance principles that emphasize due diligence and risk mitigation. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the perceived immediate cost savings and the user-facing features of IBM Sametime 9.0 without adequately assessing its technical integration and security implications. This failure to conduct a comprehensive technical and security due diligence can lead to significant unforeseen costs down the line due to compatibility issues, performance degradation, or security vulnerabilities. Ethically, this approach is flawed as it prioritizes short-term gains over the long-term stability and security of the organization's IT infrastructure, potentially exposing it to risks that could have been mitigated. Another incorrect approach would be to adopt IBM Sametime 9.0 based on recommendations from a single vendor or a limited set of user testimonials, without independent verification or a thorough internal assessment. This reliance on external, potentially biased, information bypasses the critical internal evaluation process. It fails to consider the unique context of the organization's existing infrastructure, security posture, and specific business needs. This can lead to a solution that is not fit for purpose, creating operational inefficiencies and security gaps, which is a failure in professional responsibility to ensure the best interests of the organization are met. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such decisions by first establishing clear evaluation criteria that encompass technical compatibility, security, scalability, cost-effectiveness, and alignment with business objectives. This should be followed by a structured assessment process involving relevant IT stakeholders, including security, network, and application teams. A proof of concept or pilot deployment can be invaluable for validating integration and performance in a controlled environment. Finally, all decisions should be documented, with a clear rationale that justifies the chosen path and addresses potential risks and mitigation strategies. This systematic and evidence-based approach ensures that decisions are defensible, compliant, and ultimately beneficial to the organization. Question 17. Cost-benefit analysis shows that immediate resolution of IBM Sametime 9.0 performance issues is paramount for business continuity, but a deep dive into the system logs reveals several potential contributing factors. Which of the following approaches best balances the urgency of the situation with the need for a stable and secure resolution? Option A. Roll back the Sametime server to the last known stable version without further investigation. Option B. Conduct a thorough root cause analysis by examining server logs, network performance, and recent configuration changes, followed by a targeted fix tested in a staging environment before production deployment. Option C. Initiate a full system restart of all Sametime services and components to clear any temporary glitches. Option D. Immediately upgrade the Sametime server hardware to the latest specifications to eliminate any potential resource bottlenecks. Correct answer is D. Immediately upgrade the Sametime server hardware to the latest specifications to eliminate any potential resource bottlenecks. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where a critical business function, real-time communication via IBM Sametime, is experiencing performance degradation. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for service restoration with the long-term implications of the chosen solution. Rushing a fix without proper analysis could lead to further instability, security vulnerabilities, or non-compliance with internal IT policies, and potentially external regulations if data privacy is involved, even if not explicitly stated in this exam scope. The pressure from stakeholders to resolve the issue quickly is a significant factor that requires careful management. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation of the root cause of the performance issues. This includes reviewing Sametime server logs, network traffic, and system resource utilization. It also necessitates understanding the current Sametime configuration, recent changes, and user activity patterns. Based on this comprehensive analysis, a targeted solution can be developed and tested in a staging environment before deployment to production. This methodical approach ensures that the fix addresses the actual problem, minimizes the risk of introducing new issues, and aligns with best practices for IT service management, which implicitly support operational stability and data integrity. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to immediately escalate the Sametime server hardware. While hardware can be a bottleneck, this is a costly and potentially unnecessary step if the root cause is software misconfiguration, network latency, or inefficient database queries. This approach fails to perform due diligence in diagnosing the problem, leading to wasted resources and potentially not resolving the actual issue. It bypasses the critical step of root cause analysis, which is fundamental to effective IT problem solving. Another incorrect approach is to simply restart all Sametime services without understanding the underlying cause. This is a superficial fix that might provide temporary relief, but does not address the persistent problem. It risks data corruption or loss if services are not shut down gracefully, and can mask underlying issues that will resurface later, potentially with greater severity. This approach demonstrates a lack of systematic troubleshooting and a disregard for the stability of the Sametime environment. A third incorrect approach is to immediately roll back to a previous Sametime version without proper impact assessment. While rollback is a valid recovery strategy, doing so without understanding the current state and the reasons for the degradation can lead to data inconsistencies or loss of critical configuration changes made since the previous version. It also fails to learn from the current situation and address the root cause, leaving the system vulnerable to similar issues in the future. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such an implementation challenge should follow a structured problem-solving methodology. This typically involves 1. Incident identification and logging. Clearly document the problem, its impact, and affected users. 2. Diagnosis and root cause analysis. Systematically gather data, analyze logs, and test hypotheses to pinpoint the exact cause. 3. Solution development and testing. Design and validate a fix in a controlled environment. 4. Implementation. Deploy the solution with a rollback plan. 5. Verification and closure. Confirm the issue is resolved and document lessons learned. This process ensures that solutions are effective, efficient, and minimize risk, aligning with professional IT service management principles. Question 18. Regulatory review indicates that the implementation of IBM Sametime 9.0 within the organization may not adequately protect sensitive personal data exchanged during instant messaging and collaboration sessions. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with data protection regulations while maintaining the core functionality of Sametime? Option A. Implement robust access controls and data encryption for sensitive information within IBM Sametime 9.0, ensuring that only authorized personnel can access specific data and that data is protected in transit and at rest. Option B. Accept the default security configurations provided with IBM Sametime 9.0, assuming they meet all necessary regulatory requirements for data protection. Option C. Rely primarily on user awareness training programs to educate employees on the importance of data privacy and secure communication practices within Sametime. Option D. Disable advanced security features in IBM Sametime 9.0 to improve system performance and reduce the complexity of user access. Correct answer is A. Implement robust access controls and data encryption for sensitive information within IBM Sametime 9.0, ensuring that only authorized personnel can access specific data and that data is protected in transit and at rest. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data privacy and security within the context of IBM Sametime 9.0 deployment. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for effective communication and collaboration, the purpose of Sametime, with the stringent requirements of data protection regulations. Specifically, the challenge is to ensure that sensitive information shared through Sametime is handled in a manner that complies with data privacy laws, preventing unauthorized access or disclosure. This requires a proactive and informed approach to configuration and user management, rather than a reactive one. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing robust access controls and data encryption within IBM Sametime 9.0. This directly addresses the regulatory requirement to protect personal data from unauthorized access and processing. By configuring Sametime to enforce strong authentication mechanisms and encrypting sensitive data both in transit and at rest, an organization demonstrates due diligence in safeguarding user information. This aligns with the principles of data minimization and security by design, which are fundamental to most data protection frameworks. It ensures that only authorized individuals can access specific information, and that the data itself is rendered unintelligible to unauthorized parties, thereby mitigating the risk of data breaches and noncompliance. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to rely solely on user awareness training without implementing technical controls. While training is important, it is insufficient on its own to guarantee compliance. Regulations often mandate technical safeguards, and human error can still lead to breaches. This approach fails to meet the security by design and security by default principles, leaving data vulnerable to technical exploits or accidental exposure. Another incorrect approach is to disable all security features to improve performance. This is a direct contravention of data protection regulations, which prioritize the security of personal data. Performance optimization should never come at the expense of fundamental security and privacy requirements. This approach creates a significant risk of data breaches and severe regulatory penalties. A third incorrect approach is to assume that the default settings of IBM Sametime 9.0 are sufficient for regulatory compliance. Default configurations are often designed for ease of use or broad compatibility, not for the specific, heightened security needs mandated by data protection laws. Organizations have a responsibility to actively configure and audit their systems to meet these requirements, rather than passively accepting defaults. This failure to actively configure for compliance is a common pitfall that leads to regulatory violations. Professional reasoning. Professionals must adopt a risk-based approach to system deployment and management. This involves identifying potential data privacy risks associated with the technology being used, in this case, IBM Sametime 9.0, understanding the relevant regulatory obligations, and implementing appropriate technical and organizational measures to mitigate those risks. A thorough understanding of the specific features and security capabilities of IBM Sametime 9.0 is crucial. This includes knowing how to configure access controls, encryption, and audit logging. Regular reviews and updates of security configurations are also essential to adapt to evolving threats and regulatory landscapes. When faced with a choice between performance and security, security and compliance must always take precedence. Question 19. The efficiency study reveals that the current IBM Sametime 9.0 deployment process for new user groups is inconsistent, leading to potential security vulnerabilities and compliance gaps. A proposal has been made to streamline the process by creating a standardized, automated deployment script that bypasses the usual multi-stage security review for expediency. This script would be applied universally across all departments, regardless of their specific data handling requirements or regulatory obligations. Which of the following approaches best addresses the findings of the efficiency study while upholding regulatory compliance and security best practices for IBM Sametime 9.0? Option A. Implement a simplified, universal configuration for IBM Sametime 9.0 that meets the lowest common denominator of security requirements, assuming this will satisfy all regulatory obligations. Option B. Develop a modular, parameterized deployment script that incorporates configurable security and compliance checkpoints, allowing for tailored application based on departmental needs and regulatory mandates, with a final review step for critical deployments. Option C. Focus solely on optimizing the existing manual deployment process without introducing automation, as this minimizes the risk of introducing new, unforeseen security flaws. Option D. Immediately implement the proposed standardized, automated deployment script that bypasses the usual multi-stage security review to accelerate deployment across all departments. The correct answer is B. Develop a modular, parameterized deployment script that incorporates configurable security and compliance checkpoints, allowing for tailored application based on departmental needs and regulatory mandates, with a final review step for critical deployments. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a significant bottleneck in the deployment and management of IBM Sametime 9.0 meeting services across a geographically dispersed organization. The challenge lies in balancing the need for rapid deployment to meet business demands with the imperative to maintain a secure and compliant environment. Adhering strictly to the regulatory framework, governing the use of communication and collaboration tools within the specified jurisdiction for the C2040-414 exam. This requires a nuanced understanding of Sametime's architecture and the relevant compliance mandates. Correct approach involves a phased rollout strategy, prioritizing critical business units, and conducting thorough security and compliance audits at each stage. This aligns with best professional practice by ensuring that new deployments are robust, secure, and meet all regulatory requirements before wider adoption. It demonstrates a commitment to risk mitigation and responsible technology implementation, which are paramount in regulated environments. This approach allows for iterative feedback and adjustments, minimizing the risk of widespread noncompliance or security breaches. An incorrect approach would be to bypass established security protocols and compliance checks to accelerate deployment. This directly violates the principle of least privilege and the requirement for due diligence in implementing new technologies. Such an action would expose the organization to significant regulatory penalties, data breaches, and reputational damage, failing to uphold the ethical obligation to protect sensitive information and maintain system integrity. Another incorrect approach is to implement a one-size-fits-all configuration without considering the specific compliance needs of different business units or geographical locations. This overlooks the potential for varying regulatory interpretations and requirements, leading to inadvertent noncompliance in certain areas. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of the granular nature of regulatory adherence and the importance of tailored solutions. A third incorrect approach is to solely rely on vendor default settings without independent verification and customization to meet organizational security policies and regulatory mandates. While vendor defaults may offer a baseline, they are rarely sufficient for a compliant and secure deployment in a regulated industry. This approach abdicates responsibility for ensuring compliance and security, leaving the organization vulnerable. The professional reasoning process for such situations involves a risk-based assessment. First, identify all applicable regulatory requirements. Second, understand the capabilities and limitations of the technology being deployed, IBM Sametime 9.0 in this case. Third, develop a deployment plan that systematically addresses each regulatory requirement and security consideration. Fourth, implement a phased approach with clear checkpoints for verification and validation. Finally, establish ongoing monitoring and auditing processes to ensure continued compliance and security. Question 20. Governance review demonstrates that the current security policies and regulatory compliance guidelines for internal communications have not been explicitly assessed against the advanced collaboration features offered by IBM Sametime 9.0. Which of the following actions is the most appropriate next step to ensure secure and compliant deployment? Option A. Rely on IBM's standard product documentation and vendor assurances regarding the security and compliance of Sametime 9.0 without further internal assessment. Option B. Initiate a comprehensive security and policy review only after IBM Sametime 9.0 has been fully deployed and is in active use by employees. Option C. Proceed with the full deployment of IBM Sametime 9.0, assuming its default configurations meet all organizational security and compliance requirements. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of IBM Sametime 9.0's features and configuration options, mapping them against existing organizational security policies and relevant regulatory mandates to identify and address any gaps before full deployment. The correct answer is C. Proceed with the full deployment of IBM Sametime 9.0, assuming its default configurations meet all organizational security and compliance requirements. Explanation: Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise IT environments where the integration of new technologies, like IBM Sametime 9.0, must align with existing security policies and compliance mandates. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for enhanced collaboration features with the long-term imperative of maintaining a secure and auditable communication infrastructure. A governance review highlighting potential policy gaps requires a proactive and thorough approach to ensure that the implementation of Sametime 9.0 does not inadvertently create vulnerabilities or violate established regulatory requirements. The professional challenge is to identify and address these gaps before they lead to security breaches, data loss, or non-compliance penalties. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment of IBM Sametime 9.0's features against the organization's established security policies and relevant regulatory frameworks. This includes verifying that Sametime's data handling, access controls, and logging mechanisms are configured to meet or exceed the requirements of these policies. For instance, if the organization is subject to regulations requiring data retention for a specific period, the assessment must confirm that Sametime's archiving capabilities are properly configured and operational. Similarly, if access control policies dictate granular permissions, the review must ensure Sametime's user and group management features support this. This approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes risk mitigation and proactive compliance, ensuring that the technology serves the business objectives without compromising security or regulatory standing. It demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to responsible technology deployment. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing Sametime 9.0 without a thorough review of its configuration against existing security policies and regulatory mandates is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This approach assumes that the default settings of the software are sufficient, which is rarely the case in a regulated environment. It creates a high risk of noncompliance, potentially leading to fines, legal repercussions, and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on the vendor's, IBM's, assurances regarding security and compliance without independent verification. While vendors provide documentation, the ultimate responsibility for compliance rests with the deploying organization. Ignoring internal policies and regulatory requirements in favor of vendor claims is a dereliction of duty and a direct violation of professional responsibility. Finally, delaying the security and policy review until after Sametime 9.0 is fully deployed and in use is also professionally unacceptable. This reactive stance significantly increases the risk of security incidents and compliance violations occurring during the interim period. It demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to implement a robust risk management framework, which is a core ethical obligation for IT professionals. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a scenario should adopt a structured decision-making process. First, they must clearly identify all applicable security policies and regulatory frameworks relevant to their organization and the technology being implemented. Second, they should conduct a detailed mapping exercise, comparing the capabilities and default configurations of IBM Sametime 9.0 against each requirement of these policies and regulations. Third, any identified discrepancies or potential gaps must be documented and remediation plans developed. This includes configuring Sametime appropriately, implementing compensating controls, or, if necessary, seeking policy exceptions with proper justification and risk acceptance. Finally, ongoing monitoring and periodic reassessment are crucial to ensure continued compliance as both the technology and the regulatory landscape evolve.